Good afternoon, good morning, and welcome from wherever you're watching to day 4 of Black Student Success Week, the Black Hour. I am Dr. Eric Handy, and I am happy to present a special presentation today. All throughout the week, we heard from CEOs, legislators, students, advocates, policymakers, to talk about how we can hold our institutions accountable, to talk about how we can scale positive and impactful programming, to talk about how we can hold our legislators and our taxpayers accountable. Well, for today's presentation on day 4, we have something very special from you because we haven't heard from the practitioners themselves. These individuals that are coming to the stage today are esteemed panelists. They have rolled up their sleeves for years on years. They've been in the trenches of this work. They are doing this work daily. They are living the experience of the work, from coordinating to counseling to teaching to program to advocacy to development to sending texts over the weekend to responding to emails from managers and directors and deans and presidents asking what's going on, to forming and establishing new organizations to support the work. These folks are doing it, and we are here to highlight them today. It's important that we understand none of this gets done. No Black student success happens without the work of the practitioners. So with that being said, I'm going to get out the way and make the way for the voices of those who are carrying the torch day in and day out. I want to bring a special guest to the stage who will be moderating today's conversation with our esteemed panelists. And before I do, I just want to ask that you hold on, because at the end of today's presentation, we have something very special for the group. First is Dr. Antonio Bakes from Compton College, the Director of Black and Males Color Success Initiative. Next, we have Dr. Coney from LA Valley College, Counselor and Coordinator of the Umoja Black Scholars. And then also we have Dr. Nesha Savage, Counselor for San Diego City College and Executive Director and founding member of NANDI. Thank you, Dr. Banks. Thank you, Dr. Coney. Thank you, Dr. Savage, for being with us today for Black Student Success Week, the Black Hour. We appreciate what you're going to be giving us, and I'm looking forward to just get my popcorn and have a front row seat to the conversation.
That's right. That's right. Thank you for being here today. Like our brother, Dr. Handy said, we are going to be spotlighting and highlighting some of the efforts from across the state of some of our most valued practitioners on the front lines. We're excited to present them to you all today. First, Dr. Nesha Savage is going to share a little bit about some of our panelists. Who do we have coming to the stage today?
Well, I'm excited to introduce to you all. Some of you may know her because of the amazing work that she's doing across the state, particularly in Riverside. We have Dr. Adrian Grayson, who is the Associate Dean of Educational Partnerships at Riverside Community College. Let's show Adrian some love. And then we also have Dr. Khalid White, who is a professor of ethnic studies and African American studies at San Jose City College in the house. Let's show him some love.
All right, all right. And I have the esteemed pleasure of presenting Ms. Natisha Hudson. She serves as the Umoja Counselor and Coordinator and the Black Student Success Liaison at Diablo Valley College, as well as the founder and the lead consultant and facilitator for Restorative Impact, as well as Mr. Malijah Garfield. He serves as the Director of Black Culture, Innovation, and Technology at the Georgia Institute of Technology. Let's show him some love, y'all.
Great, great, great. And I have the esteemed honor of introducing my good brother and fellow San Diego State Doctor of Education, Dr. Jonathan Henderson, Faculty Coordinator for Professional Development at Southwestern College and Transition. And even more than that, he is a product of one of our Black success programs here in the state of California for the Umoja community. And he is also a former regional coordinator, as well as his current role in researcher and skills specialist. So today we're going to be conducting our introduction for these individuals. We will be talking here about the questions and the issues that face Black practitioners in the system of California. And I will begin with the first question as we transition into our panel. So I will start off with Ms. Natisha Hudson. How would you describe the impact that Black African Americans identity-focused programs such as Umoja, Amend, Black Student Resource Centers have on the academic and personal trajectory of students?
Yeah, I think these programs are really important as they create a sense of cultural pride for our students. We know we're in an educational system that is inherently anti-Black. And so to get an opportunity to be a part of something that nurtures who they are culturally is really important. And I think it's also a respite from just environmental stressors of being at a predominantly white college as a Black student. In addition, I think it's a beautiful opportunity for our students to see themselves in a way that they may not have otherwise. And so being in this program, you get to see administrative professionals, you get to see instructional faculty, counseling faculty, you get to build connection and community with administrators. And for a lot of our students, not only are they first generation college students, but also they don't come from a family of educators. And so it gives them the opportunity to see themselves in multidisciplinary professions, which I think is really important and nurtures their spirit in a very intentional way.
Amazing, amazing. So now we're going to kick it over to Dr. Adrian Grayson to come in and answer this question. I'll repeat it for you just in case you didn't really hear it or it's not familiar, but how would you describe the impact of these African-American identity-focused programs such as Umoja, Amend, the Black Student Resource Centers as they have on the academic and personal trajectory of students?
Yes, I think that our identity-focused programs are so important, especially in our California community colleges, which I represent. I did some research actually for my doctoral program in this area, and I looked at gendered racial identity and academic success for Black women enrolled in community college specifically. There's tons of research out there on success factors for Black students in predominantly white institutions and some research in HBCUs, but there was almost nothing in community colleges and definitely nothing specifically that addressed Black women. And what I found, I did a mixed method study, quantitative and qualitative, and what I found was that strong racial affinity coupled with a sense of belonging with faculty was an actual significant predictor of academic success. So I looked at so we have to think about how central race is for a student. And so now when we listen to Tish and she talks about our institutions being anti-Black, right? So how think about that struggle for that student who wants to affirm their Blackness when they are attending an institution that might actually do the opposite for them, right? For them, what does that do for their spirit, right? And not only for their spirit, but their ability to continue with their education. So we found that a strong sense of racial centrality and whether or not that's affirmed at their institution, and then whether they felt that sense of belonging with faculty that actually led to increased self-efficacy, increased locus control, increased action control, meaning that our students believed that they could succeed, they worked harder towards their own success, and they believed that their success was in their own hands, right? And so the students also identified Umoja and other programs as big supports for them. However, there were a lot of students who weren't in identity focused programs, but they did find their tribe somewhere. They did find something. So whether that be it was journalism club or the nursing cohort or whatever it may be, EOPS, right? So it's very important that these programs also have identity affirming practices embedded into their programs, right? And I cannot underscore the importance of the classroom enough. That sense of belonging with faculty had to be included in that. And so we cannot leave this work to just one program alone or one person alone on a campus. It's the responsibility of everyone at the college and to help our Black students be successful.
Amazing, amazing, amazing. Thank you for that. Thank you for that. So next, bring it to the stage, Mr. Malijah Garfield. Please come in and give us your take.
Yes, and I would say one, thank you all for having me. Speaking on the national front and coming from Georgia, I was previously in Utah, director of their Black Cultural Center, and then coming to the state of Georgia to work at Georgia Tech. I would say nationally, Black cultural centers and positions that impact Black student success, really there are kind of four kind of areas that impact students. And that is the domains of belonging, which the first belonging domain being personal. Positions like ours and success centers and Black cultural centers, you really kind of impact that personal belonging, meaning like what is the student's personal path to success? What does identity development look like for them? What does advocacy look like for them? We also focus on social. Who are my people? How do we help students find who their people are? We focus on the academic, on how do they explore the joy of learning, and what does high impact practices look like impacting them, but also like how do they get interested in majors that they may not be interested in before, but also learn about themselves. And then lastly, I would say postgraduate success, which especially in our climate and helping students kind of find jobs post-graduation. Like how do we make sure that they're set up professionally to enter the job market, to go into getting additional degrees, postgraduate degrees, things of that nature. But all of that, I would say our positions and what we do kind of impact that, not only in California, but nationally.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. So very great answers. As we look to move forward to our next question, and before I do pass it off, I would like to also bring in to engage the audience. So we have a few questions. If you can, like in the chat, just answer this one question to kick off as we look to move forward with student support for our next question. For those of you that are dealing with Black success in any type of role or capacity, please answer the next question of, have you regularly received the support that you've asked for regarding your role or commitment to Black students? And the answers would be always, sometimes, rarely, never, or not applicable. So again, for those of you that are dealing with Black success and standing on business for our students, have you regularly received the support that you've asked for regarding your role and commitment to Black students and success at your campus? And now as we move forward with our next question, I will then pass it on to Dr. Nesha Savage for question number 2.
Thank you, Dr. Coney. And so I believe, sometimes you feel like you're preaching to the choir, but then you're really not. And so, we all know the importance of the identity focused programs. We know the great work that Umoja does. We know the great work that the AIDA program does. And we know the great work that many of us do just outside of our normal work hours to engage Black students, to help them feel a sense of belonging. And so Dr. Smith talked about racial battle fatigue and how our body codes acts of racism like acts of violence. And so when we talk about these identity-focused programs and we talk about spaces that are created just for Black students and how important they are, you can't underscore that enough. It's important that when we're constantly, having these acts of violence toward our students and toward ourselves, even as employees, to have safe spaces to go to have that healing, to have, community, and to have understanding. And so we know that we need the support. And so my next question is going to be and I'll start with you, with you, Dr. Henderson. What does authentic institutional support look like? We know what, the performative support looks like, but what does authentic institutional support look like to you?
Yeah, I really appreciate that word authentic. because when institutions want to authentically support communities, they must do three things. The first thing they have to do is go to the affected community and ask them what they need. The second thing they have to do is shut up and listen, emphasis on the shut up, right? Then they need to believe them and act based on what the community says that they're interested in, based on what the community says that they want to be provided to them. And so when I conducted my study of Umoja coordinators, the study is called I Love My Students, but I Hate the Pimping, right? In a phenomenological study of Umoja coordinator experiences in California community colleges, I asked them, what do you need? What does institutional support look like for you? And they gave me 11 main themes. I'm not going to go through all of them. I call it the Umoja Coordinators 11-point program, right? But I'll just talk to you a little bit about the themes. The first is that the Umoja coordinators themselves need support. They want 100% release time with 100% autonomy and a team. 100% autonomy, because we know that our students don't necessarily need help between only the hours of 8 and 5. And so if I'm doing an academic plan for a student at 8 p.m., that counts as work. I shouldn't be able to have to justify that when I go into my institution and try to ask for what I need. And so that's kind of what Umoja coordinators talked about. The second theme was they wanted enhancements to their program. Number one, institutionalized funding. One of my participants shared, they said, if you just put in $500, if you could just give me $500 worth of institutionalized funding, then that means that'll transform my life, because I'll know what I'm actually getting next year. It's hard when you work on soft funding and you don't know what you're going to get. You can't plan, you can't be sustainable. Along with that, they asked for physical space and access to disaggregated Black student data. A lot of our institutional research offices and other spaces are guarded and don't want to share that data so we can support the uniqueness of who our Black students are. And so Umoja coordinators ask for that as well. And then finally, they have recommendations for campus leadership. And I really want to make sure that I say this. When I say campus, when they say campus leadership, right? They're not saying just the president, just the VP. They're also talking about our academic senate leadership, and they're also talking about our constituent groups, right? Unions. And so when they talked about that, they said that number one, they want our campus leaders to be actively engaged in Umoja programs. They want folks to show up, not just take a picture and leave, right? Show up, sit down, engage with the students, be there in the space so that they actually know what's going on. Then they want folks to listen and respond to the needs of Umoja coordinators and protect and advocate for them and their programs. Often a lot of Umoja coordinators talk about, getting the bus rolled out, rolled over them when certain things happen, when issues come down from the state, when there are new initiatives, things that happen, they're not aware of them. And so, it's that campus leader's responsibility to be that shield for them and to be able to protect them so that they have the information that they need for their programs to be successful. And then lastly, the last thing they asked for was developing succession planning. Sometimes folks want to step back and take a break. Oh my gosh, right? Sometimes folks have other aspirations and other things that they want to work on, and they don't want their program to drop because they're not the ones coordinating the program. And so how can the institutions develop a model for succession planning so that 10 years from now, the programs will stand strong? And so those are just some of the things among many other things that folks talked about.
Wow. Dr. Henderson said, don't just show up for the picture, show up and support. So Tish, we'll go to you. What do you got to say about it? What does authentic institutional support look like to you?
Okay, now I got to follow Dr. Henderson, who brought the fire. He pretty much said everything, but I will add that institutional support really looks like being reflective as leadership on respectability politics and how that hinders things. When you have these programs and you're doing equity work is about resisting the status quo. So by nature of the work you're doing, you're going to have to challenge, you're going to have to push back, right? And having this understanding that, these people are educated, they are experienced, and they know what they are talking about, right? And so how can we make space for collective voice and reasoning at the table? I think a lot of times, there's a lot of ego involved, and we all know how those politics go. You can't say this to this person, you won't move up if you do this, right? All of these are barriers to really supporting our students. And so from an institutional perspective, I think it's important to, know who you hired and then trust those folks to actually do that work and be willing to hear constructive criticism, right? And then take note on what needs to be done going forward. It's really important to also understand that the folks who are boots on the ground, right? We keep our ears to the street. We know what the students are saying. We know what faculty and one another are saying to each other that we won't say to you all. We are privy to a lot of ideas, right? And so making space for innovation is also very important on top of having that funding and those human resources, right? None of these programs should exist without a team of people, right? A team of at least 3 folks. You got your program, your administrative support, and then you have your Umoja, or maybe it's an AMIN, a coordinator, and then a counselor, right? And so it's important to also, lastly, I'll leave on this, for an administrator, if you're over these programs, you need to have an understanding of how these programs function, right? If there's MOUs involved, you need to read that MOU and understand what it states, right? Because it's a problem when you're just signing off on things and then institutionally, you don't know what you have gotten yourself into. You can't really advocate for a program to function at its best if you don't know what that looks like.
Thank you, Tish. And I like what you said. If, with regards to respectability politics, if you're at the table and you can't say what needs to be said, then why are you there, right? And so we're going to let Dr. Khalid White take us out with this question. And so again, the question is, what does authentic institutional support look like to you?
Well, I mean, a lot's been said that I wholeheartedly agree with, and I wasn't in Dr. Henderson's research study, but I was one of those Umoja coordinators for quite a long time, and so I agree 100% with what he mentioned and also what Natisha just mentioned as well. I would also say, just to kind of add on to it, that institutional support is going to look different from campus to campus, from district to district, so forth and so on, right? But at the same time, authentic support, do your words and actions line up? Do what you represent and then also what you do equate? And a lot of times I just don't see that, or I haven't seen that in my experiences. And then particularly too, we're talking about institutional support. A lot of times it is the administration telling the faculty and staff what to do or what they expect. But there's no two-way communication in terms of, hey, well, we would expect these things, or we would like to have these things too, to support our program to reach your goals. It's kind of, in my experience, it's kind of like a coach and a player, right? If you have a star player and you want them to reach X, Y, Z benchmark, the coach is supposed to help them get there. But it's a two-way street. The player needs the coach needs the player. A lot of times there's a disconnect between the administrator, who is like the coach, and the player, who was like the, as Natisha just mentioned, boots on the ground, the person kind of, or the persons who are hands-on, the practitioners themselves, the staff, the coordinators, et cetera. So there's really been, a huge disconnect. And particularly, I think there's a disconnect when it comes to these Black success programs, whether it's Umoja, Amen, et cetera. I think there is a lack of understanding from, there's a top-down approach that leads to a lack of understanding in my experiences. So that's not authentic support. That's lip service. That's it looks good. That's, I want to show them and take some pictures when it's Black Student Success Week. I want to show them and take some pictures when it's Black History Month. But that doesn't, that doesn't sustain a program from January to December, right? And I'm speaking also to Black administrators as well. This is not just administrators who are of other persuasions. This is for our Black administrators, our Latinx administrators, our green, our orange administrators, our left-handed administrators. This works across all constructs and all concepts of race, gender, etc., right? And all titles. So authentic support, again, back to the point, do your actions and your words line up? And I'm looking for that more in our system. Yep.
Thank you. We'll pass it on to you, Dr. Banks.
Yeah, man, this panel is fire. It's heat, right? Heat rocks. We told y'all we was gonna bring it for y'all. Listening to that, right? Thinking about what authentic institutional support looks like. And while it's not happening, right? Oftentimes in these roles as practitioners, you seem to incur what some people may or may not know is what's called the black tax, right? And so some of our people on the call might understand this a little bit more as you get into this, but I'm curious, what does that black tax look like for you, and how does it show up in your daily, your weekly, and your yearly workload as practitioners? And first, I'm gonna go to Dr. Grayson. Curious about that from your standpoint.
Yes, thank you. I think it's a good segue from the last question, because when I think about what does authentic support look like, I think it looks like love, right? And so what does it look like when that love is not present, right? And that's the tax that you feel, the toll that you feel, right? So our Black educators and practitioners, we shouldn't have to sacrifice ourselves in order to serve our students, right? So we shouldn't have to take on the mental health and the physical health and, all those things that put a toll on our bodies. We shouldn't have to do that just for us to be able to serve our students holistically. And so many of us, we talk about, we give 110%, but we all know that's not possible. You can't give more. You don't have to be a math professor to know that you can't give more than 100%, right? So, we talk about Black excellence and Black girl magic, and we pride ourselves out of making a way out of no way and all of that, right? These are that resilience that we talk about all the time. And it takes a toll. It takes a toll on our bodies. It takes a toll on our mental wellness. It takes a toll on our spirit, right? So, in addition to that, I also want to talk about, in addition to the Black tax that we're already dealing with, I also want to talk about the secondary trauma that many of us are dealing with, right? So as we work with our students, and, for some of us, like I'm an empath, right? So I just take it all on, right? And so when we think about specifically how Black students are disproportionately impacted by or experiencing food and housing insecurity, right? They're disproportionately experiencing incarceration, right? And come into many of our campuses, post incarceration, right? And as we're helping them find places to live, helping them find, food to eat and jobs with, thriving wages, right? And so all of that takes a toll on us. And the reason why we do it, the reason why we continue to do it, I'll speak for myself, is because I see my family in them. I see me in them, right? I see my child in them. I see that's me in front of me. So I'm going to do everything I can to support our students and to love on our students. And so we're the ones the practitioners, the ones that are on the front lines. And we have to we need our institutions to understand that this can take a toll on us, right?
Beautifully said. Thank you for that, Dr. Grayson. Mr. Garfield, I'm gonna go to you, sir. What's your thoughts on the Black tax and how that's incurred?
Yes, I would say the biggest thing that it contributes to is the tax being on outreach. I think institutions kind of overtax us in one, having us maintain the relationships with external partners and the community members, having us have relations with alumni, having relations with stakeholders, bringing in and recruiting new Black students to these institutions. And so doing all of those things contributes to the tax. And we're often left with not many resources or personnel or staff to then assist with a lot of those, assisting and kind of dealing with the Black community, the external community of our campus, but also on campus. And so then we are oftentimes pinned as the person that handles all Black things. And with that, all Black things must go through us: the recruitment, the retention, the graduation, the finding the jobs, the making sure everything is good, that the students have mental wealth services, that they're good, that their mind is right, but they're also fed and that they're doing all these things. And so that contributes to a grander Black tax. And it's often pinned with us without resources. But yeah.
Beautifully said. You're expected to be your own institution within yourself. You're the outreach, alumni, career services, mental health. Yeah, you hit it on the head, Mr. Garfield. Tish, what are your thoughts on that? The Black tax that's incurred as practitioners in this work.
Yeah, I totally agree with what Brother Garfield just said. Because a lot of times there's a lack of understanding that we are a lot of things to these students, right? So we may have this, role, particular mine is Umoja Counselor Coordinator and Black Student Success Liaison. But when they need to go to financial aid, I'm walking them to financial aid. When they need to go to admissions and records, I'm doing that. If they need a laptop loan in the library, I got to talk to them about that. I got to know about tutoring, right? So we have to know about everything. We have to be all resourceful. And it goes back to that culture of anti-Blackness, right? Because they don't trust that they can just go to financial aid, or maybe they have gone and they've gotten an attitude from somebody. And so it's turned them off from completely wanting to go back over there again. So we also have to expend a lot of energy being apologists, right, for what's wrong with our campus, and still encourage them to be there, that they are valued. And the sad part is that, a lot of times we are in these programs, they're only champions, right? So we have to constantly cheerlead and say, you can do this. I'm sorry, let me help you with this one thing. And Dr. Grayson spoke about resilience, and resilience is the aftermath of harm. And when there's high expectations that are unfeasible, low compensation, and then under appreciation, that is really a recipe for poor health holistically. And so the tax is also that a lot of times what we are fighting for our students to have, we don't even get from our own administrators. Right. So we sit at these tables with these folks who talk about equity and inclusion, and these same folks are being inequitable and exclusionary towards us. But then we have to put on a front in front of the students like everything is okay when everything is not okay. And so it really is hard being a Black educator in these equity programs. And it's tough. That tax is heavy.
Thank you for that powerful words from everybody. I'm sorry, I was processing that. Dr. Coney, you want to take us to the next question?
Yeah, I sure will. I sure will. I just want to say thank you for all of those feedback and comments. I just want to kind of reiterate that we are not messiahs for Black students in our colleges. We are not. We are not walking on water for Black students. We're not turning water to wine. We are drinking it, though, because it's stressful, right? We're drinking a lot of it when we get home. So understand that if you're a snoozer, which is pretty much what I'm hearing about the incongruence, meaning that you're showing up to those equity tables, you're showing up to those equity events, but you're hitting the snooze button when you get back to your campus. You're hitting your snooze button when it's time to stand tall for your fellow Black colleagues or your fellow Black students. We need to iron that out. We need to be able to call that out. Because if you're a snoozer and you're on this call and you don't know that have the tools to really reach out and support your fellow Black practitioner, because we might make it look easy, but I assure you that it isn't. There is a tax of Black exceptionalism where the people that are exceptional at Black success get more work. We get overworked. And with that stated, before I ask this next question, I'd like to pose a question to the audience. What percent of your role regarding Black success do you complete after your contracted obligated hours? Would that be roughly 15%, 15 to 30, 30 to 45, or over 45? Again, what percent of your role do you complete after your contracted obligated hours dealing with Black students? 15%, 15 to 30, 30 to 45, or over 40. And with that said, I'll move on to question 4. A wise man once told me, if you show me your budget, I'll show you your value system. In a community where we're moving to see the hold harmless lifted, there's going to be a lot of conversations, and many of us have had them with regard to our budgets as it moves to the 24-25 fiscal year. God bless Umoja statewide. God bless them for the money that we're sending for these programs, because they are truly a lifeline to our system and a lifeline to our programs and students. Without that money, some of our programs would literally die. So thank you first and foremost for that. So with that stated, what do you believe the impact of limited resources or personnel on Black student success has been or will be moving forward? And for this, I'll start off with Brother Dr. Henderson.
Yeah. And so what I say is that the impact has been that institutions perpetuate what I term a cycle of institutional neglect, anti-Blackness, and labor exploitation. INABLE, enable, right? And it goes a little something like this, right? The Black practitioner enters into the institution and they are not set up for success. There's no budget. There's no outreach pipeline, right? They don't even have the keys to their office yet, and so on and so forth. And so what happens is that this Black practitioner has to perform foundational labor by building their programs, their areas, their divisions, their departments from the ground up. Like Dr. Coney said, when I asked Umoja coordinators, how much of your time do you spend outside of work hours working on Umoja work? They said 50 to 75% of their time was spent after contractually obligated hours, right? Furthermore, right, they work nights, weekends, winter, summer, and spring breaks with no pay, okay? No pay. So somebody's paying. It's just not the institution. And so because of all of that foundational labor, because of that Black tax, obviously they say, I can't perform the work of an institution. And so they go to their institution for support, but they're met with barriers to institutional support. Chief among them being what's called institutional gaslighting, right? Put in a proposal, ask for it. And hypervisibility when it comes to critique, but invisibility when it comes to support. But they just don't sit down and take that, right? Then they have to perform resistance labor. It's resistance, but it's still labor. So they have to advocate for their programs, their institutions, and their students, right? And many of the ways that they do that is through strategic behavior modification. And then from what I call for Black women, pet to threat. And it's not what I call it. It's actually what scholars term that. I can't get into that right now. Read the dissertation. But, you know, there's an impact because of all of this stuff. There's a professional impact. Number one, that professional impact is very positive at sometimes because these individuals, because of the fire that they're in, become experts in Black student success at their institutions and indispensable to campus equity efforts. These folks know how to do everything because they're doing everything. But there's a personal impact. There's a personal impact attached to that, right? Weight gain, overeating, lack of sleep, no time for physical activity, no time for family or relationships, burnout, weariness, stress, intense anxiety, suffering, spiritual fatigue, and even in many cases, I want to talk about Dr. Candia Bailey, suicide and death. And so that what happens is that personal impacts happens, they transition, and then the cycle starts all over again with the new Black student success educator. And so what you've created is a plantation politic, right? Within these systems and these institutions where folks' labor is being exploited for profit. And that's what I talk about, right? And so that's the impact. And then finally, I'll say this as well, just to end this in my part, right? We can't talk about scaling until we talk about this. We can't talk about, increasing Black student success rates in terms of measurably increasing them until we talk about this. This is the space, because often we do a pretty good job of talking about Black student success and really understanding their conditions and the way that they move and really being able to see their needs. But when it comes to the employee, we exploit them. When it comes to the employee, they're victims of anti-Blackness, right? And we just and until we deal with this issue, we will not be able to deal with the issue of Black student success on our campus.
Drop the mic on that one. Often a hard act to follow, Dr. Henderson. Often a hard act to follow, my brother. Brother Elijah Garfield, come in and give us your take.
The question one more time. Just sorry.
Yes, sir. What do you believe the impact of limited resources or personnel have on the Black student success at your college moving forward?
Yeah, I would say one, really love that term of the institutional gaslighting because it really lends to burnout. Burnout is a detriment to a lot of talented individuals that enter this space. And so what we're left with is a lot of talented individuals that enter and really want to support Black students. But after a couple of years, they're like, I can't do this because I'm literally being gaslighted at every chance that I can kind of do to proactively do things, to proactively really make an impact on students. And so they're kind of left with, oh, okay. Yeah, I care about myself more than I care about this institution. I got to go. I can't do this because it's impacting my well-being. It's impacting who I become. And so a lot of that really just leads to burnout. And burnout, as we say on the national level with the National Association of Black Cultural Centers, is that the average director that is in a space of Black Cultural Center work only lasts about 5 years. And so you kind of really have to think about like why we have these talented individuals that want to enter and become coordinators and directors and VPs, but they're only lasting a couple of years. And why is that when they should be leaving a long lasting impact? And it's because of burnout. But yeah.
Thank you, my brother. Thank you. Okay. I just want to also point out there's some great research by my good mentors and brothers, Dr. Frank Harris and Dr. Luke Wood, that speaks a lot about inauthentic allyship as well as race lighting. So please do, if you have not yet heard that, please do check it out. And for the sake of time, I just want to say this and say it again. If you are going to amend, but you're not amending the policies on your campuses that create barriers for Black students and Black faculty and Black practitioners, you're doing a disservice. You're a snoozer. So please understand that if you are also not Black, but never showing up to any of the Black events, I've said this before, any of the Black conferences, but again, when you show up to all of the other events that are part of your affinity group, you're doing a disservice. That's not equity, right? So let's keep pushing the agenda forward. I'm going to turn it back over to my good sister, Dr. Nesha Savage. I'm also going to put a question in the chat for you guys to respond to, but I won't call it out just to move forward for the sake of time. Queen Savage, please come in.
I'm going to say, in the interest of time, do we want to skip number 5 since we did talk about the Black tax? And I think Dr. Henderson then took us to church like 12 times. And so maybe we can just segue right on to number 6 so we can get through these questions.
Most definitely. We want to grant some time for our panelists to share just a little bit about their unique work. So could we pull up the panelist spotlight, please? And first we'll go with Mr. Garfield.
Yes, thank you so much. So I would say, and this kind of give a spotlight in about a minute or so. I'm new in this role as the inaugural director of Black Culture, Innovation, Technology at Georgia Tech. I was previously the director of the Black Cultural Center at the University of Utah. And with this new position, I really, what they were kind of tasking me to kind of do is look at how do Black students fit into the future? What is there? The going saying is that there are Black people in the future, in every field, in every economic market, in technology, in different spaces, and we need to pay homage and make sure that we prepare our Black students to make sure that they are, one, prepared for the future, but that they know that they belong in the future. And so really, the Office of Black Cultural Innovation Technology focuses on kind of embracing Afrofuturism and blending heritage with technology to shape kind of the future reflecting cultural roots. And so we are a full center that has a number of different spots. We focus on a number of technology points, whether it be artificial intelligence, whether it be looking at 3D printing, rather be looking at how do we prepare students to focus on projects that may impact the Black community and help alleviate Black disparities. And so we will charge students at really kind of creating in that kind of STEM minefield on how do we make sure that students are able to create things that uplift and change the scope of what Black people feel in this country. it rather be in the government space, rather be city planning, rather be in this healthcare, rather be in wellness, rather be in a number of different spaces. How do we prepare students to kind of enter those fields and be an incubator for success? And so I would say our space really is the future of Black cultural centers across this country, and looking at what is technology infused in kind of asking that question. And not asking that question, but really posing the notion that Black people belong in the future, and how do we prepare them? Yeah.
Beautifully said. Thank you, Mr. Garfield. We appreciate you and your brilliance and your innovative visionary leadership, good bro. Next, can we go to Dr. White? Next slide, please.
Yes, thank you. So in conjunction kind of with the topics of this panel and talking about Black tax and racial battle fatigue and things of that sort, I was able to do some research over the last couple of years where I got other scholar practitioners to give their experiences across the state with what they're dealing with. But not only just the issues that they're dealing with, also they provide several pages and also several practical steps on how to address some of these current issues like the Black tax, racial battle fatigue, vicarious trauma, things of that sort. And so it's a book and a film that the research culminated in. It's called Black Voices from the Ivory Tower. I've had a chance to take it to several campuses lately, and looking to engage with more colleges and campuses and districts that want to move their particular institutions from anti-Black towards more of an anti-racist standpoint. So it's kind of the things that I've been doing lately. Yeah.
And if you want to take a look, Dr. White's most recent video is in the chat for you. Next, we're going to go, let's see who we're moving to. Can we go to the next slide, please? Bring up Tish. Tish, you want to share a little bit about your work?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. So right now I am the Umoja Counselor Coordinator and Black Student Success Liaison at Diablo Valley College. Shout out to the students who are on the line. And so that role really entails me having a full scope, hands-on of Umoja work. So coordinating programming, doing the outreach, the retention, doing their counseling, educational planning, right? And just making sure that the program is sustainable. And what's most important to me in that work is making sure that the students feel like Umoja at DVC is a place where they are welcome, where they are loved, and where they are supported in all aspects. In addition to that, I have my own education and restorative justice consulting business, Restorative Impact, where I help individuals. I've worked with a lot of community colleges, universities, really look at DEIB work from a restorative justice lens. And so I love that work. I do workshops. I do coaching to folks in leadership. And also just kind of like scoping out what it looks like to institutionalize restorative justice in K through 12 and community college systems.
Beautifully shared. Thank you for that, Tish. Next, can we go to Dr. Henderson?
Thank you so much. First and foremost, I just wanted to say that I saw in the chat that Malcolm Dixon put G in order to answer your question. G was thoughts of suicide. And so if there's anybody in this space that knows Malcolm Dixon, can you please reach out to him and check on them? Can you please check on them? We want you to live. We want you to live. And you can reach out to me too. Please contact me. Somebody contact them. I'll just say this. I'm doing a lot of stuff. I wrote my dissertation, and you can definitely use it as you see fit. It is an advocacy tool for folks to use, and folks around the state have been using it and have been getting and winning great outcomes at their campuses. The other thing I'd like to highlight is that our business, led by my wife, Dr. Crystal Henderson, partnered with Core Learning, led by Dr. Luke Wood and Dr. Frank Harris, to produce a program called Program Design for Student Equity Programs. And so if you are a new practitioner to this work and you're like, where the heck do I get started? You can definitely access this program and training. It's 4 modules and it will teach you everything that you need to know about creating a successful community cohort learning community or cultural center. And that's pretty much it. The rest of it I could talk about at a different time.
Thank you for that, Dr. Henderson. And Dr. Grayson, you want to bring us home?
Yes, thank you. I just want to say that each one of your institutions has an equity plan, and it's an institutional equity plan. I want to challenge each of you who oversee a program or some type of office in your area or an academic program. You need to be creating an equity plan specifically for your area. Don't wait for the institutional equity plan. You all should be looking at your data, disaggregating it, and looking to see which of your students are doing well and which of your students aren't, creating and implementing a plan, and then coming back and evaluating it. I oversee dual enrollment, which isn't specifically for African-American students. However, we have African-American students in our program. So it's important that I looked at those numbers and I actually created an equity plan for my area. And so I'm willing to assist anybody who needs support in that with my consulting as well. But I just want to make sure that folks understand that they do not have to wait for the college to decide how they're going to support Black students. You can support Black students every day in your own practice.
Thank you for that, Dr. Grayson. We appreciate you.
Thank you so much for this award-winning panel. For those of you that are here and still present, please give the panelists a round of applause in the chat and send them some love. I just wanted to close out with one thing and one thing only. I did put a question in the chat. Feel free to answer that question as we move forward and turn it over to our moderators. But I want to just leave you with this. Plantation. If your work, you cannot show up authentically for the work that you're built and designed and paid to do, if you're supposed to be obedient, and if that is the culture and ethos of your campus, you're not at an institution, you're at a plantation. If when you advocate for Black students and you're told to fall in line and be obedient, if your administration and people above you are not supporting you and really showing up inauthentically when it really counts, is that a safe place for you? Do you want to be like my brother and have thoughts of suicide ideation? My people, just because it looks easy doesn't mean that it is. Check on your strong Black friends, check on your strong Black practitioners, and check on the people that are truly doing this work at a very high level, because it's hard and we take it home with us. So to my good brother, Dr. Eric Handy, close us out, my brother.
Can I get all the panelists to put your camera back on if it's not? And can we spotlight them real quick? And please, can we shout out them? Just show them some love. Just shout them out, shout them out, shout them out. Give them some emojis. Let them feel that presence. Thank you to all of you for your voices. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your words, your wisdom. The work isn't easy for any of us at all, no matter what level you come in to do this work. I want to shout out those that have worked behind the scenes with Black Student Success Week for our regional leads and our points of contact. Thank you. I want to shout out to our maintenance and operational Black staff and faculty, our janitorial Black staff and faculty, our admins, our instructors, our counselors, our adjunct Black faculty, and our administrators. At each level, we all experience a form of toxicity working on the plantation. The industry is inherently racist to our human experience, our being, our culture, and our way of life. And it is very difficult to get through. I ask that if you're hearing this right now, or you share this right now, that after leaving today's important webinar, you go and pour some positivity into one of your counterparts, your colleagues, or even somebody that you don't know, and just give them the words, say, I see you and I appreciate you. Over the course of the last year, from this Black Student Success Week to last year's Black Student Success Week, we in our own community have lost some lives. Right now, we want to provide a moment to honor those who are no longer here doing the work, who literally, to some extent, died doing the work, who have transitioned on to the ancestors. We don't really get a lot of moments to lift up us, to lift each other up, and to say, I see you. In memoriam, we're going to close with a tribute. The music that you're about to hear was by Dr. Terrence Elliott, lyrics by Amanda Elliott, vocals by Jamila Rideau and Troy Marshall, soprano saxophone by Jay Spencer. Special note, this was the last recording that saxophonist Jay Spencer made before he transitioned. For all of you out there doing the work, living in this experience, I see you. We see you. We honor you. We love you. Thank you.